I kept saying it long before anything in my outer world shifted. Long before any number matched a ticket, long before anyone believed me, long before I even fully believed myself. I repeated it in the silence of the night and in the noise of the day. My life is unfolding in my favor. Everything I desire is already choosing me. I didn't say it to force reality. I didn't say it to beg the universe. I said it to remind myself of who I truly am, a creator, not a seeker. And slowly, something subtle began to happen. My inner conversations transformed. My reactions softened. My expectations shifted. I stopped looking at circumstances as if they were authorities over my destiny. I began treating them as shadows cast from a deeper place, my state of being. Every time doubt whispered, I answered it with that simple inner sentence. Every time fear tried to seduce me back into old patterns, I stood still inside the feeling of already receiving. It wasn't about the lottery. It wasn't about the numbers. It was about alignment, dominion, and the quiet decision to accept that what I desired was already mine in the unseen. People look at the 8 wins and think the magic was in the tickets. But the magic was in the shift, the moment I stopped waiting for evidence and began living from the end. I woke up each morning with a calm conviction. Not excitement, not anxiety, conviction. A soft certainty that life was rearranging itself in ways I couldn't yet see. I kept saying it when nothing changed. I kept saying it when everything seemed opposite. I kept saying it because it wasn't a sentence, it was a state. Each repetition carved new assumptions. Each repetition dissolved the old identity that believed blessings had to be earned instead of accepted. And then it happened. Not once, not twice, 8 times reality reflected my inner world back to me. Not because I chased it, but because I finally became the person for whom such abundance was natural. The outer wins were only symbols, reminders, reflections of an internal victory that had already taken place. The real lottery wasn't the money. It was the realization that when you persist in the inner story, the outer world bows to it. That when you claim a state consistently enough, boldly enough, quietly enough, it hardens into fact. I kept saying it. I kept feeling it. I kept living inside its truth. And the world, faithful as always, returned it to me multiplied. I kept saying it, not as a chant, not as a ritual, but as a quiet inner knowing that I refused to abandon. There is a point when words stop being words and become the atmosphere you breathe. They become the environment of your mind, the soil from which your reality grows. That sentence became my inner climate. It was the current beneath every thought. And even when my senses showed me nothing but repetition, routine, and the same old circumstances, something deeper in me knew the shift had already begun. I realized that life does not change when the evidence appears. Life changes when the inner story changes. The outer world is not the initiator, it is the follower, it is the echo of your persistent assumption. So each day, even when the world presented me with reasons to doubt, I returned to my chosen sentence, to the feeling that it implied. I wasn't chasing luck, I was stepping into identity. I was stepping into the version of myself who naturally received, naturally attracted, naturally lived in abundance without strain, without struggle, without waiting. I stopped trying to predict the how. I stopped asking when. I stopped measuring my progress based on physical proof. Instead, I allowed myself to feel the outcome as if it had already unfolded. I walked through my home as though life had already shifted. I sat in silence and let that feeling wash over me until it no longer felt like imagination, it felt like memory. A memory from a future that was already formed, already complete, already mine. The more I lived in that inner reality, the more the old version of me dissolved. I didn't worry about what made sense. I didn't argue with logic. I didn't let statistics intimidate me. I didn't let anyone else's disbelief become my truth. I understood that every extraordinary outcome is ordinary to the one living in alignment, and I was aligning from the inside out. Thoughts became choices. Feelings became decisions. I decided what I would accept, what I would embody, what I would assume as natural for me, and every time fear rose, I met it with calm certainty. I reminded myself that the unseen is always more real than the seen, because the unseen is where creation begins. Slowly, I watched my reactions transform. Situations that once would have made me anxious no longer moved me. I reacted from the version of myself who already had what I desired. I carried myself as though the outcome had been guaranteed from the beginning. And that simple shift, responding from the end rather than to the present, opened doors I didn't even know existed. The lottery was only one of the symbols. Yes, I won 8 times, but those wins were not separate miracles. They were reflections of one continuous state of consciousness. A state in which abundance was not an event, it was a nature. The world was simply delivering what I had already accepted within myself. People always ask what I told myself, what I repeated, what I believed. They want the words, but the power was never in the words. The power was in the feeling behind the words. The words were the anchor, the access point, the doorway. But the feeling of inevitability, of naturalness, of quiet certainty, That was the true cause behind everything that manifested. I stopped treating desire as something distant. I stopped seeing myself as someone trying to reach a goal. Instead, I became the one who already had it. I stopped trying to climb. I chose to arrive. When I held the end in my mind with enough persistence, life rearranged itself effortlessly. Opportunities aligned, steps unfolded, paths illuminated themselves. What seemed impossible became predictable. What once felt rare became normal. It wasn't luck that brought those wins. It was alignment. It was the decision to assume abundance so deeply that the world had no choice but to comply. The world always mirrors the dominant inner state, and my dominant inner state became one of overflowing certainty. Every day I returned to that feeling. Every day I lived from it. Not forcing, not hoping, just knowing. The same way you know the sun will rise, the same way you know gravity works, the same way you know your next breath will come. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't impatience. It was simply truth to me. And once that truth settled in my being, the winds came as naturally as sunrise. They came not as surprises but as confirmations. They came not as moments of shock but as reflections of what I had already accepted. My inner world had shifted first and the physical world followed faithfully. I kept saying it because every repetition carved a deeper path into my consciousness. Every repetition solidified a new identity. Every repetition reminded me that I am the operant power, the one who assigns meaning, the one who shapes experience. My words were the blueprint, but my state was the architect. And once that state became stable, everything external had to match it. Even now I understand that the true victory wasn't the winnings, it was the mastery of inner direction. It was the realization that anything can be reshaped from within. That circumstances have no authority over the one who chooses their inner state deliberately. That life bends to the one who persists in the unseen until it becomes undeniable in the seen. And so I continued, not striving, not pushing, simply assuming, accepting and allowing. The world rearranged itself around my certainty, just as it always will for anyone who claims their desire from the end. I kept living inside that inner certainty until it no longer felt like something I was practicing and instead felt like something I was. It became as natural as breathing. There was no effort left in it, no tension, no waiting for something to happen. I had crossed a quiet threshold within myself where desire and fulfillment fused into one seamless state. I was no longer imagining the end, I was living from it. The world around me still looked the same for a while, same days, same routines, same noise, same responsibilities, but inside everything had changed, and that is always how it begins. The inner world shifts long before the outer one catches up. But the outer world is faithful, it always bends to the inner pattern that is held with consistency. People often think manifestation is about intensity or emotions or dramatic rituals, but what truly creates change is not intensity, it is persistence. It is the quiet, steady decision to return to the truth of your desire no matter what your senses present. I learned that the senses are not enemies, they are simply late reporters. They show up after the fact, after the state has already been accepted. And once I understood that, I stopped waiting for proof. I stopped looking for signs. I stopped checking anything outside of me. The inner feeling was the only confirmation I needed. There were days when my mind tried to pull me back into the old patterns. Days when the world seemed stubbornly unchanged. But each time those thoughts tried to reclaim me, I responded with stillness. I reminded myself that I was not trying to make anything happen. I was simply choosing who I was being. And who I was being, internally, had nothing to do with the circumstances around me. That was the real power. Not reacting, not wavering, not negotiating with doubt. I discovered that doubt only has power when you entertain it, and fear only grows when you feed it. When you refuse to engage, these old states lose their grip. They crumble not because you fight them, but because you stop giving them attention. My chosen sentence became my stabilizer. Whenever the world tried to pull me into old assumptions, I returned to that inner statement like someone returning home. I said it in my mind with gentleness, not desperation. I didn't shout it. I didn't force it. I simply allowed it to settle inside me like a quiet truth. My life is unfolding in my favor. Everything I desire is already choosing me. Those words carried a frequency of completion. They implied the end, they implied inevitability, they implied that I wasn't chasing anything, I was aligning with something that already existed. And the more I settled into that truth, the more natural it felt. I noticed that my emotional reactions softened, my habits shifted, my assumptions restructured themselves. I was no longer living in anticipation, I was living in embodiment. I started to notice subtle changes in how I interpreted life. Events that once would have frustrated me now seemed irrelevant. Delays no longer felt like obstacles. Setbacks no longer felt personal. Everything became neutral because I no longer measured anything against what I desired. My desire was already fulfilled within me, so no external condition had the power to contradict it. This was the key. I stopped letting the world tell me who I was. I told the world who I was, and eventually it reflected it. The first lottery win didn't shock me. It felt familiar, almost expected. It was a reflection of the state I had been living in. When I saw the numbers align, I didn't explode with excitement. I inhaled a deep, calm breath and thought, of course, this is natural for me. That response came not from arrogance, but from alignment. The second win came easier than the first. By that time, my inner state had become even more stable. I understood that the physical event wasn't something I had to chase or manipulate. It was simply the outer world responding to my inner identity. When it happened again, I smiled, not because of the money, but because I could see the invisible laws moving, rearranging, obeying the pattern of my assumptions. By the third and fourth wins, I no longer entertained surprise. The world had become fluid to me, flexible, responsive. I realized deeply that material things are not solid or rigid. They are expressions of consciousness. And consciousness, when directed with clarity and persistence, reshapes everything in its path. By the fifth win, I began to understand something profound. Abundance is not something you attract. Abundance is something you identify with. When you identify with it, the world organizes itself around that identity. Opportunities magnetize, paths unfold, synchronicities multiply. Not because you are lucky, but because you are aligned. The sixth and seventh wins came at moments when I wasn't even thinking about the lottery. I wasn't checking tickets with anticipation. I wasn't waiting for anything. I had fully stepped into the state of someone who naturally receives miracles as part of daily life. They weren't miracles anymore, they were reflections. Just as a mirror doesn't choose what to show but simply reflects what stands before it, reality reflected my inner being with precision. By the eighth win, I had already learned the real lesson: the external doesn't matter if the internal is unwavering. The money was useful, yes. It opened doors, created freedom, and expanded possibilities. But it wasn't the money that changed me. It had changed long before the money arrived. The real transformation was in the mastery of my inner dialogue. The victory was over the old self that believed circumstances were stronger than consciousness. The triumph was the realization that everything in life comes from within. Not some things, not occasionally, everything. What I discovered through those wins was that reality responds to the tone of your inner conversations. It responds to the assumptions you carry lightly but firmly. It responds to the identity you choose in silence. The world is not shaped by effort or struggle, but by the quiet internal acceptance of a new truth. And once that truth becomes dominant, once it becomes your natural state, the world has no choice but to reflect it with exactness. I lived in that truth until it became my atmosphere. I breathed it. I rested in it. I trusted it with a trust that required no physical evidence, and because of that the evidence came in overflowing measure. Even now I continue to shape my life from within. Not by force, not by demand, but by assumption. I learned that assumption is creation. That imagination is the blueprint. That identity is destiny, and the outer world bends to the one who masters these inner laws. I kept saying it, I kept feeling it, I kept living from it, and the world delivered again and again exactly as I had assumed. And so, if there is anything to take from my journey, let it be this: nothing in your life is waiting to change, it is waiting for you to change your state. The moment you dare to claim the end as your truth, the moment you decide that what you desire is already yours, the world begins its silent rearrangement. Do not chase outcomes. Do not beg for signs. Do not measure your progress by what your eyes can see. Stand firm in the reality you choose within, and let the outer world follow in its own time. You are not at the mercy of circumstances. Circumstances are at the mercy of your assumption. Choose boldly. Persist quietly. Hold the end with unwavering conviction. When your inner world becomes unshakable, life has no choice. It must rise to meet the truth you have accepted. My dear friends, there comes a moment in every life when the world presses its heavy thumb upon our patience. People will question you, misunderstand you, tug at the edges of your peace as if it were a loose thread. But the miracle, the quiet rebellion, is knowing that you do not have to rise in anger every time someone reaches for that thread. When someone speaks sharply to you, when their words come out jagged and careless, remember that sharpness is often the cry of an unhealed spirit. Do not let their wounds become your wounds. Let their bitterness pass you the way wind moves through tall grass, felt for a moment, then gone, unable to uproot what is deeply rooted. There is a secret, you see, to living unbothered. It is the art of choosing yourself, the art of tending to your own inner garden with gentleness so fierce it becomes a shield. When you cultivate your joy, your self-respect, your stillness, then no stranger storm can flood you. You become a sturdy house built on truth. You become a soul that remembers, I do not have to attend every battle I am invited to. If someone tries to provoke you, let your silence be your sentence and your dignity be your declaration. There is power in refusing to hand over your peace like loose change. There is triumph in knowing that your emotions are yours alone, sovereign, sacred, not to be rearranged by passing tempests. And if ever you feel anger rising like heat under the skin, pause long enough to ask yourself whose voice deserves to echo inside you. Is it the voice that belittles you, or the one inside that knows your worth? Lean into that inner voice. It has been waiting for you. Breathe into it. Let it steady you like an old wise friend. Walk through this world remembering you are not obligated to mirror the chaos around you. You are allowed to keep your grace. You are allowed to keep your calm. You are allowed to let others carry their own storms while you stand in the sunlight of your own choosing. And when you do this, when you choose not to be bothered, not out of apathy but out of deep, tender strength, you teach the world how to treat you. You show others that peace is not a weakness but a mighty, majestic force. And most of all, you show yourself that anger need not be your companion, not when serenity has been waiting all along for you to claim it. My beloved ones, let us wander a little deeper into this quiet country of calm where the heart learns to walk without stumbling over every careless word someone throws into its path. There is a rhythm to a peaceful life, a slow and steady sway that comes only when you stop letting the world's noise drown out the music within you. It is a rhythm you can learn even if agitation has been your lifelong companion, even if anger has been sitting at your table for years. Peace is patient. It will wait for you to recognize it. People will try you. They will test your patience like a child testing how far a glass can tilt before spilling. Some will disappoint you without intending to, and others will do it with precision, as if it were their personal craft. But understand this: the way others treat you is a revelation of who they are, not a reflection of what you deserve. When you realize that, truly realize it, the sting begins to fade. The words that once cut deep now sink softly into the soil beneath your feet, unable to wound what has learned to heal. You must learn the art of stepping back, of choosing the long view. When someone disturbs your peace, imagine your life as a vast horizon stretching out far beyond that one moment. Ask yourself if this irritation will matter in a day, in a year, in the wide and wondrous sweep of your existence. Most troubles are small, though they come wearing the mask of bigness. Peel away the mask and you will find they are only brief visitors, not permanent tenants. When a person tries to ruffle your spirit, breathe. Breathe as though air itself is your inheritance. Let the breath loosen the tight places inside you. Let it remind you that you own the rights to your emotional landscape. Others may walk through it, but they do not get to rearrange the furniture or graffiti the walls. That authority is yours. There is a truth I wish you to carry like an amulet: not every invitation to anger deserves your RSVP. You do not have to show up to every argument. You do not have to explain yourself to every critic. You do not have to justify your softness to those who mistake kindness for weakness. When your peace becomes precious, your responses become intentional. There will be moments when people speak about you in ways that feel untrue, moments when they question your character or your choices. Let them talk. Let them spend their breath on misunderstandings. You meanwhile spend yours on your purpose, on your joy, on your growth. Words spoken in ignorance do not have the power to rewrite your truth unless you hand them your pen. If you want to never be bothered, learn to release the need for validation. This world teaches us that someone else must confirm our worth before we feel it. But that is a lie that empties more souls than hunger does. Your worth is not an echo, it is an origin. Let it rise from within you, not from applause, not from approval, not from the trembling fear of being misunderstood. When you know who you are, truly know it, then no one can tell you otherwise. You will also need to practice the sacred discipline of letting go. Let go of grudges. They are heavy and rusted chains, dragging behind you with every step. Let go of memories that claw at your peace. Let go of stories you tell yourself about what people meant when they said what they said. Most people are speaking from their own storms, their own confusion, their own tangled histories. Do not hold their chaos like it was meant for you. And when you feel yourself about to react, pause long enough to watch your thoughts pass like a river. Notice which thoughts come clothed in insecurity, which arrive with old wounds tied to their ankles, which march in carrying the voices of people who harmed you long ago. When you see them clearly, you can choose not to let them steer you. You become the guardian at the gate of your mind, deciding what enters and what fades back into the wilderness. It helps to remember that life is not a contest of who can shout the loudest or strike the hardest. Life is a weaving. Each interaction becomes a thread. Some threads are bright and soft, others are thick and coarse. But you are the weaver. You decide how each thread is used. You decide whether it becomes part of a tapestry that warms or a net that entangles. Choose your threads with care. Choose your reactions with tenderness. Understand that people often act out of fear of being overlooked, fear of not being enough, fear of losing control. They project these fears outward because they cannot bear to sit with them. When you see their fear, you no longer take their words so personally. You begin to view their actions through the lens of compassion. And compassion, when rooted in self-respect, is a shield that keeps you from absorbing anyone else's panic. To never be bothered, you must court stillness the way lovers court each other, attentively, patiently, with deliberate presence. Sit with yourself. Listen to the quiet. Listen to your thoughts until they soften. Learn the landmarks of your own spirit. Know where the soft ground is, where the rivers flow, where the strong cliffs rise. When you know your inner landscape, you will not be taken by surprise when someone tries to disrupt it. You will know exactly where to stand. Some people seek conflict because conflict is the loudest place they know how to live. Do not follow them into that noise. Let them dwell where they are comfortable, and you dwell where your soul can breathe. You are not obligated to match anyone's energy, especially when their energy is chaotic. Protect your inner temperature. Keep yourself warm with dignity, not hot with anger. Practice gratitude not as a performance but as a daily reclamation. Gratitude reminds you of the abundance still blooming around you, even when someone tries to darken your day. It shifts your gaze from what irritates you to what nourishes you. And when your heart is full, it has little room left for resentment. You can train yourself to rise above irritation by focusing on purpose. Ask yourself, does this moment serve my growth? Does this argument advance my dreams? Does this confrontation expand my spirit? Most often, the answer is a quiet no, and when that answer comes, you may smile softly, step away, and leave the noise behind like dust shaking off your feet. There will be days, of course, when anger still curls around your ribs. You are human. Even the gentlest souls have tempests inside them. When it comes, let it come without shame. Sit with it, speak to it. Ask it why it is here, what old wound it is trying to defend. Anger is often misplaced protection. Once you understand it, it loosens its grip. Once you honor it, it stops trying to shout over you. Choose also the company you keep. Surround yourself with people who do not profit from your chaos, who do not test your temper for entertainment, who speak with respect even when they disagree with you. Let your circle be a place where calm is not mocked, where tenderness is not mistaken for fragility, where communication is chosen over conflict. When you walk with peaceful souls, your own peace deepens. If someone mocks your serenity, it is only because they haven't met their own. Let their laughter pass. Peace is a rare jewel. Not everyone recognizes its worth, but you do, and that knowing is enough. I want you to imagine yourself as a tree rooted deep in the earth. Winds will come, some fierce, some gentle. People will lean on you, scratch your bark, pluck your leaves, misunderstand your purpose. But a tree does not rise each morning afraid of storms. It simply stands grounded in its knowing. It grows upward, not outward toward every disturbance. It gives shade, not battle. It gives fruit, not fury. It remains itself no matter who comes or goes. You have that same capacity. You can be rooted, you can be steady, you can be unwavering in your peace. Carry this with you. Your calm is not a gift to others, it is a gift to yourself. You preserve your health, your clarity, your joy. You lighten the load of your own journey. You become someone who can see further, think deeper, love more freely. A calm spirit is a liberated spirit. You must also remember that walking unbothered does not mean walking unheard. You can speak your truth without anger. You can correct someone without raising your voice. You can defend your boundaries without bitterness. Calm is not silence, it is sovereignty. When you speak from a place of grounded stillness, people hear you differently. Your words hit with a strong, steady force, not because they are loud, but because they are aligned with your truth. You may practice this pause before responding. Even a single heartbeat of stillness can transform your reaction. In that pause, you gather yourself. In that pause, you decide not to hand your power over. In that pause, you choose patience over impulse. And slowly, steadily, you teach your spirit to move with grace rather than haste. Remember this too, laughter can be a balm. When someone tries to provoke you, sometimes the lightest thing you can do is smile, not maliciously, but with a softness that says, "Your storm cannot shake me." Let humor find you in moments that once would have rattled your bones. When you learn to laugh lightly, life loses some of its sharp edges. But above all, the way to never be angry or bothered is to build a world within yourself that is more beautiful than any chaos outside of you. Fill it with memories that comfort you. Fill it with music that steadies you. Fill it with words that remind you of your strength. Fill it with dreams that are so luminous no one else's shadow can darken them. You owe it to yourself to cultivate a life where your peace is not a fragile thing, easily broken, but a powerful force, resilient and bright. A peace that does not run from conflict, but simply refuses to be reduced by it. A peace that lets you walk through the world unshaken, unburdened, undisturbed by the passing tempers of others. And when you live this way, when calm becomes your compass, people may wonder how you remain so steady. They may study your steps trying to find the secret. But the secret is simple. You chose yourself. You chose your peace. You chose your joy. And once you make that choice, truly make it, nothing and no one can take it from you. There is a gentleness waiting for you, a softness so steady it could cradle even the heaviest of days, and it lives inside you like an ancient inheritance. You may not have learned to use it yet, you may still reach for anger out of habit, but the gentleness has always been there. It is not fragile, it is not naive, it is the kind of gentleness born from someone who has seen the sharp edges of people and chosen not to become sharp in return. You can grow that gentleness, you can cultivate it until it becomes the first language your heart speaks. There will be times when someone's words pierce you before you even have time to guard your spirit. Perhaps they speak from envy or insecurity, or confusion about themselves. Perhaps they speak without thinking at all. In those moments you must remind yourself that you have lived through storms far greater than the weather someone else creates in a single breath. You have endured nights that felt endless, losses that carved through you, disappointments that reshaped you. And still you rose with your hands open, not clenched. You rose with your hope intact, even if it trembled. How then could you let a passing comment, a brief moment of misunderstanding, claim what greater hardships could not? Your peace is a story you get to rewrite every day. With every breath, with every choice, you decide whether you will live small and reactive or expansive and intentional. There is power in realizing that you can always return to yourself. Even after anger flares, even after someone shakes your patience, even after your composure slips, still, your peace waits for you like a loyal friend. Do not abandon it. Reach for it, let it show you who you can be when you choose grace over fury. When someone irritates you, picture yourself standing at a crossroads. One path is wide and familiar: anger, defensiveness, the urge to snap back, the impulse to prove a point. It is a road worn down by countless feet. The other path is narrow and quiet. It requires a steadiness that feels unusual at first. But that quiet path leads to freedom, the freedom not to internalize other people's chaos, the freedom not to play roles written by someone else's insecurity, the freedom to preserve your energy for things worthy of it. Walk that quiet path, even when your voice shakes, even when your pride protests, even when your instincts tell you to fight fire with fire. Let the fires around you burn out on their own while you protect the flame within you. There will be people who speak to you with a sharp tongue, because sharpness is the only language they have learned. Do not let their lessons become yours. If you respond in kind, you take on their mantle. You mirror their fear. You become a student of their chaos rather than a master of your peace. Instead, let your presence be a lesson in another direction. Let them see that calm is possible. Let them see that anger is optional. Let them see that your dignity is not something they can tamper with. To live unbothered is to live with perspective. What seems enormous in the moment often shrinks when viewed through the lens of time. Let time be your ally. Let time teach you what is worth holding and what is worth releasing. There are resentments you have carried for years, ones that offer no nourishment, no wisdom, no growth. Put them down. Walk without them. You deserve to move lightly. Do not underestimate the strength it takes to remain calm. Calm is not the absence of emotion. Calm is the trained ability to feel emotion fully and still choose not to let it steer you into storms. Calm is courage dressed in softness. It is power made quiet. It is confidence without the noise. When you cultivate calm, you become someone who speaks gently yet stands firmly, someone who can hear criticism without collapsing, someone who can face conflict without losing themselves. There is a kind of listening that keeps you free. When someone speaks to you in anger, do not listen for the insult, listen for the pain behind it. Hurt people rarely know how to speak without passing their hurt along. If you can hear the wound beneath the words, you can let the insult roll past you without lodging in your spirit. This does not mean you excuse bad behavior, it means you do not absorb it. You acknowledge it like you acknowledge rain, you feel it, but you do not become it. To never be bothered, you must also learn the grace of boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors with locks only you can open. They teach others how to treat you, and they teach you how to treat yourself. When you say no with clarity, when you refuse disrespect calmly, when you honor your own limits, you reduce the footholds that irritation once had in your life. Boundaries turn anger into choice. They turn emotional chaos into something you can navigate with ease. Some people thrive on stirring conflict because anger is the only way they feel alive. Do not anchor your peace to their storms. Let them live where they live, and you live where serenity grows. You do not have to match their fire. You do not have to dim your light because someone else has chosen to dwell in shadow. Remain luminous. Remain steady. Let your glow irritate no one and inspire everyone. Practice the art of detachment, not detachment from love or connection, but from ego. Ego is the fuel of anger. It is the voice that insists you must correct every insult, counter every misunderstanding, defend every inch of your pride. Ego would rather you lose your peace than lose an argument. Release it. Release the need to always be right, the need to always be understood, the need to always be validated. When ego loosens its grip, serenity finds space to sit beside you. You can train your spirit through small daily rituals. Wake with gratitude, speak softly to yourself, forgive quickly, breathe deeply when tension rises, choose silence when words feel sharp, choose kindness when irritation flares, choose patience especially when you feel you have none left. These small rituals become your shield. They strengthen your emotional muscles until calm becomes your default. Do not fear silence. Silence is where your soul resets. Affirmations whispered in the quiet corners of your day can shape your disposition. Tell yourself, not everything requires my reaction. My peace is mine to keep. I choose what enters my spirit. These words are seeds. With repetition, they bloom into a temperament that does not rise and fall with the whims of others. There may be moments when anger feels justified. Moments when someone wrongs you deeply or disrespects you openly or wounds you intentionally. Even then, especially then, you have the choice not to let their behavior define your internal climate. Anger may flicker inside you, but you do not have to feed it. Let it pass like a storm moving over an ocean. The waves may rise, but the ocean remains. You are that ocean, not the waves. Remember that not every battle deserves your brilliance. Some conflicts are too small for your attention, too petty for your energy, too temporary for your involvement. When you meet a moment that tries to drag you into its pettiness, rise above it. Let your character speak in your silence. Let your restraint be a declaration of your wisdom. There will be days when your own mind becomes the source of agitation. Thoughts can twist themselves into knots, replaying conversations, reimagining conflicts, exaggerating offenses. When this happens, ground yourself, return to your breath, return to the present moment. The mind can be a storyteller prone to drama. It is your job to be the editor. Revise the narrative, remove assumptions, remove catastrophizing, release the version of the story that harms you most. If you wish to never be angry or bothered, practice empathy, not because everyone deserves it, but because empathy frees you from taking things personally. When you understand that most people behave according to their own wounds, their own histories, their own fears, then their actions stop feeling like personal attacks. You stop internalizing what was never meant for you. Live with intention. Before you speak, ask yourself if your words build or break. Before you react, ask yourself if this reaction serves your peace. Before you engage, ask yourself if this interaction nurtures your growth. When you make decisions from intention rather than impulse, your life becomes a gentle unfolding rather than a series of emotional collisions. Do not rush your evolution. Becoming unbothered is not an overnight achievement. It is a slow, steady shaping of your inner world. You will falter, you will react, sometimes you will feel the old anger rise. This is not failure, this is practice. Be patient with yourself. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to a child learning to walk, encouraging, gentle, forgiving. Find solace in solitude. Give yourself time with the quiet. Time to listen to your own breath, your own heartbeat, your own dreams. When you learn to enjoy your own company, the opinions of others lose their grip. Solitude builds resilience. It teaches you to be whole on your own terms. Choose softness deliberately. Softness does not mean weakness. Softness is the ability to stay open in a world that tries to make you small. Softness is the bravery of a heart that continues to love, continues to hope, continues to rise. When you walk softly, you carry an unshakable power, one that anger can never match. So breathe, slow down, carry your peace like a lantern. Let it light your steps. Let it protect you from the wildness of others. Let it remind you that you are allowed to live gently even when the world speaks harshly. You are allowed to respond with grace even when provoked. You are allowed to choose calm again and again until calm becomes your nature. You have the capacity to move through life unbothered, not because life is easy, but because you have learned how to meet it with wisdom. Not because people are always kind, but because you have learned how to keep your spirit from bending toward their storms. And not because you never feel anger, but because you no longer let anger define you. Your peace is a sacred thing. Protect it, nurture it, carry it with pride. Let it be your compass, your shelter, your inheritance. When you walk in that peace, the world may try to shake you, but you will not be shaken. You will stand, you will breathe, you will rise again and again, choosing calm as your crown. And so, my friends, let your spirit rise above the noise of this world. Walk with a calm so rooted, so deliberate, that no passing storm can claim you. Remember that your peace is not a luxury, it is your birthright. Guard it with wisdom, carry it with pride, and let it speak for you when words fall short. Choose not to be moved by every gust of chaos, but to stand firm in the truth of who you are. When you claim your calm, when you honor your dignity, when you refuse to give your power away, you do more than silence anger. You become a lighthouse in a world full of storms. Let your peace be the proof of your strength, and let your serenity be the legacy you leave wherever you go.